Joining us now with more on this is Omar Granados, a Cuban scholar in modern languages from UW-La. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
For the people who aren't familiar with the situation, how big of a deal is this today?
This is probably the most exciting news and the most challenging at the same time. One of the most important decisions that the U.S. government has taken towards Cuban policies in the last 50, if not 100 years.
How much is this going to help the Cuban people, first of all?
Very much. It was the hope of the Cuban population for the last 4 years, perhaps since President Obama was elected, that this was going to be part of his agenda. Obviously, there were other issues in foreign policy that the president had to attend. But I think this is going to be part of his legacy as the president that obviously is taking a very positive step forward in the relationships between two countries that have been really involved historically for over 200 years. I mean, there have been Cubans living in the U.S. since the 1800s. Today, the president was citing Cuba's national poet, who was the organizer of the liberation movement against Spain when he was living in Tampa and New York City. So there's a history that was honored today also by taking those steps.
There are critics that say that the United States shouldn't be rewarding an oppressive regime like Cuba, that opening up trade and travel between the two is going to actually benefit an oppressive regime. What do you think?
Well, there was something said by the president today that I thought it was the most important statement of the entire speech. Was we've been attempting to shut down relationships with Cuba through an embargo, through our political concerns for 50 years, and that approach hasn't worked. The reality is that there's people in Cuba that need medication, that need food, that need access to information, and people who are being denied human rights. So I think this is a step that really steers away from that mentality of imperialism that has surrounded the U.S., especially around the world, and it's taken a lot more positive approach to help the relationship between the two people, the people of the United States and the people of Cuba.
And you think it'll benefit the United States as well?
In some ways, there's definitely going to be some steps taken towards allowing more travel to the Cuba from U.S. citizens. Obviously, it'll still be regulated to educational trips and other journalistic trips, but it's definitely moving forward towards establishing a more fluid relationship between the two countries. Small businesses from the U.S. are going to be able to negotiate and trade with small private businesses in Cuba. There's a very small but strong emerging small private sector in Cuba, and eventually those relationships obviously are going to open up more information going, more people going, more access to internet, more access to newspaper and other media. So
started that new relationship. We're out of time, but Omar, thank you very much for adding that information today.